Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte goer.
But let me try to explain. Bear with me how I look at this. You may think this is a strange analogy, but it's how my mind works. I think we're headed toward two investigations here. Here's how I think of it. Guy robs a bank. On the way to jail, the cops beat the living Hades out of him. The cops should be investigated. Should you beat a criminal suspect? No. Should there be investigation? Yes. But you also have to go investigate the alleged bank robbery. And I think what you're going to see is an investigation of the whistleblower complaint, and you're going to see an investigation of the allegations about Vice President Biden's son. Now, here's what we know about that. And if you're going to be fair, you have to look at both.
Why is that if there... Well, let me ask you this. No. Senator, no. I'm not going to give a... I want you to be able to... I will give you a second to respond here. But
Okay.
Here's where I find all this stuff... a bunch of it's hard to believe on the Hunter. It's hard to believe the concern about Hunter Biden by some of these folks that are making this case. If they were so serious about this, I'm trying to figure out why nobody from the FBI has been contacted. Not a single person. I don't understand why Rudy Giuliani thinks it's better to investigate an American via and outsource it to a country that apparently they also didn't trust. I mean, do you see why I'm skeptical that that the Hunter Biden stuff is really that serious? If they were serious about it, you go to the FBI. You don't go to an oligarch in Ukraine.
Well, number one, Chuck, you don't know that the FBI hasn't been contacted. The FBI
And if there were an investigation, Senator, don't you think that our friends in the White House would let you know publicly that there was some sort of inquiry going on?
You don't know whether the FBI has been contacted or not. And if the FBI follows protocol, it wouldn't tell us. That's point one. Point two, and I hope you'll let me finish, what we do know is this. A Russian oligarch hired Hunter Biden, paid him $50,000 a month, gave a bucket load of money to his law firm. It may turn out that I said Russian, I meant Ukrainian oligarch. It may turn out that the Ukrainian oligarch got Mr. Biden's name off ZipRecruiter, but I doubt it. And if you go to Mr. Biden's Wikipedia page, there are other similar allegations. I'm not making an allegation of impropriety, but I am saying that's going to be investigated. If not at the instigation or the suggestion of Republicans by Mr. Biden's co-candidates.
You do realize, Senator, that a lot of people have attempted to look into this, and they haven't found a they're there to look into it.
Who has?
And that's the point here. You brought up the FBI.
Who's looked into it, Chuck?
Apparently the Ukrainian government. Apparently every mainstream Ukrainian journalist. Plenty of people here. We've all looked into it. I'm sorry.
Has MSNBC
yes,
looked
sir.
into it?
You do realize you're looking for an outcome, not the facts. That's what you keep telling me. There have been 4 or 5 different entities that have found nothing here.
Who?
I just told you. And they're not good enough for you. They're not good enough for you.
Wait, you said Ukraine.
I said Ukrainian journalists have. The Ukrainian government has. Apparently, if the FBI's been contacted, the FBI can't seem to open an investigation either because they haven't found enough. American media, myself, we've looked into it. The New York Times has looked into it. Look, Maybe you're right. Maybe there's magical missing information here. But at some point, do you not accept all of these entities looking into it to have found the answer? And again, if what Hunter Biden did was wrong, then, boy, there are a lot of people with the last name of Trump that have some answering to do about their foreign work and their foreign entanglements.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Chuck. I don't think there has been an in-depth investigation of this.
What is your definition of it? It's conducted by who? Who would have to conduct this investigation for you to accept that there is nothing there? And do we have to conduct investigations basically based on partisan fairness? Well, if we do this, we have to do that. That isn't how the rule of law works, sir.
Well, if you want to be fair, then it seems to me, in my example, that you need to investigate both the alleged bank robber and the alleged violation by the policeman who beat the bank robber suspect. Now, you have said there have been investigations. I'm saying who? You're telling me MSNBC has investigated this and concluded that there was nothing wrong with Hunter Biden being picked?
No.
And put in
the
this
allegation is this, that somehow the vice president was acting on his own behalf, not on the behalf of essentially the entire Western world, in calling for a corrupt investigator to get fired. The allegation is that somehow he was doing it at the behest of his son. There's no evidence that anything like that exists. It's an allegation that you're simply making in order to do, it's sort of the old LBJ. Well, we have no idea if it's true, but make them deny it. That's not how politics is supposed to work. I understand in Louisiana and Texas it can work that way sometimes. But we were trying to create a fair rule of law here at some point.
I agree, Chuck. And if you were right, I would agree with you. If you were right, I'd agree with you. But you're wrong. This hasn't been investigated. And just because you think that I'm not alleging the vice president did anything wrong, but I'm just telling you the American people are looking at this and going, okay,
all right.
Mr. Biden.
Do you think how does that have anything to do with the president of the United States going to another world leader and saying, open an investigation up on my chief political rival?
Because it has to do with Ukrainian corruption, which is what all of this is about.
Well, the Ukrainian corruption, it depends on what you view as corruption. What
Chuck,
one side says is corrupt. I am trying to be fair here, but you can't gaslight us, sir. Don't gaslight us.
I'm not gaslighting you. I'm telling you the facts. Do you deny those facts about that? Do you think they got Hunter Biden's name off ZipRecruiter? I don't. And I don't think the American people do either. I'm not alleging an impropriety. I'm saying we need to look into it.
What I'm telling you is the president of the United States is the one who violated the Constitution, perhaps, not Hunter Biden. And Hunter Biden didn't do anything. We don't know if Hunter Biden even did.
Perhaps is the operative term, because you don't know.
And more importantly,
and I don't know because we haven't seen the transcript.
More importantly, do you know all of the financial affairs of all of your children?
And I have one child, and I do know most of the financial affairs because I put up the money.
Okay.
I have one son, and I know every penny he gets because I give it to him.
You think he tells you everything he does in his business life?
I hope not. I sincerely hope not. Some things we're better off not knowing.
That's right.
All I'm saying is, Chuck, you're a fair guy, and if you're going to be fair here, you're going to have to investigate everybody.
It is Wednesday, the 25th of September of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of this priest? And while you're at it, we better, table number 4, table number 10, well, look, the whole salon would like to have the lovely hollandaise sauce artfully decorated with a equally lovely egg dish, and serve it up. Well, the I word has now been formally presented and codified, so we can say the whole thing now. Impeachment. Yes. Oh, I feel giddy. Now I know. I've spoken with some family members, and they're worn down. They don't think anything's going to happen, but they had a propensity for that anyway. They have a propensity for all politicians. And I have to keep reminding them, no, there's one side that keeps gumming up the works, and there's one side that really is trying to help. And for some reason, the people who are really trying to help are considered to be the enemy of the state. So they're not convinced anything's going to happen. Oh, yeah, well, we'll see. Because it's been going on for a while, and they've been primed to believe that Nancy doesn't know what she's doing. I don't really think she wants to go down this road, and I'll tell you why. When you get to a certain age, you kind of hope that you don't see another president impeached in your lifetime. You've already seen one with Nixon. Had Bill, for whatever reason that was. Oh, yeah, I remember. He lied. And now we got this guy. It's not about this guy. It's about the office of the presidency. So I can understand. I felt a little tinge of, wow. The Great Experiment has some caustic elements in it. Maybe we need to get them out. Obviously, they're not preservatives because they're not preserving. They are destroying the vital functions of what makes this representative democracy work. And part of that is, well, if you've attained the highest office in the land, you should be a little bit more wholly developed as a person. Should one not? If you're not wholly developed as a person, if you've made a pact with the devil during your formative years, when your identity was still being pulled and pushed and then put into an alabaster orange marble encasing, well, you'll be locked into, I would think, a pretty much a bad attitude towards life. Some people might call you evil because of what you do and what you've done. What's funny is that when you go down the list of Trump accomplishments, you don't see him saving a dog from drowning in the Hudson. You don't see him pulling somebody out of the way of a cab going down Fifth Avenue. You don't hear any of those stories. Not one. But what you do hear is how he's walked all over people and gleefully reveled in it to his cronies. And, I don't know, the New York Post. Play tough, act tough, be tough. Yeah, you're really not tough. It's the accoutrements of it. He went to a military-themed school. And in some ways, he went to a mobbed-themed apprenticeship. Themed. Because he has been able to bridge the legit with the illegit to get where he is. All right. Well, like I said, the S has hit the fan. And even Chuck Todd finally found a spine. Chuck Todd. And what's up with this John Kennedy guy? Is this guy a character out of a John Kennedy Poole novel, A Confederacy of Dunces? My God. This guy's a character of a character. I can't even bring myself. And I have many times. I've used regional accents to make a point, and sometimes those points are mocking. I apologize. Is that punching down? But this guy's a character of that character. What the hell? And he gets away with it, too. Everybody goes, oh, wow, that guy's rather homey. Yeah, well, it's an affectation is what it is. And he plays it very well. Well, to those who vote him into office, it seems to work, apparently. But to us here in the coast, yeah, the elites, Jesus. I don't ever want to hear the term elite ascribed to free-thinking, reasonable critical understandings, and empathetic benevolence as being there's something wrong with that. You're just acting uppity. Really? Acting? We don't act uppity, we are. Well, according to them, we are. And but most of us are just trying to get along with our neighbors. And most of the time, we let them get away with stuff until it gets to be too much, and now it's gotten to be too much. No one wanted to believe that, oh, really? Did he really conspire? Because there's no such legal term as collude. Come on. They put that out there to game the refs. All right? It's all part of the plan, and we know it. Just put it in there real quick. They throw out a bunch of, crazy Looney Tune stuff like, oh, Hillary is part of a child sex kidnapping ring and is out of the basement in Comet Pizza, and it's just Looney Tune stuff, and even they know it's Looney Tune stuff. They meaning, the deplorables who continue to prop up this poor excuse of a leader. They fall for the trap. Oh, yeah, there's a basement and, child sex ring in the basement of Comet Pizza. There is no basement in Comet Pizza. And you show them that and you tell them that and they still won't believe it. You're just making it up. They won't ever go there to prove it themselves. And if they do, they'll have another excuse for what's going on. Oh, they just had it covered up when we were there. So then, when an actual crime is committed, like conspiring with a foreign nation to sell out America, oh, come on, that's Looney Tune stuff. Look what we did to Hillary. Do you really believe this Russian stuff? I kept saying it's not just Russia, okay? Vlad's part of it. But I think the Sauds and maybe, Jinping over there might be, in on it. For their own devilish means. And that's why we have the Constitution and the supposed checks and balances that would prevent the leader of the free world selling out the free world. Well, I keep hearing on these message boards here locally that capitalism will save everything. Well, I kind of think that it was a capitalist that, sold the guy the rope that we're now being hung with. And some of us are able to take that rope off and throw off the shackles and turn around from the cave where all the shadows have been cast, see the real world for what it really is, come back and tell everybody. And of course we're going to be shunned until life actually fills the cave with light and there are no more shadows and you have to see the world for what it really is. So, here we are. And we're going to hear a lot of like, well, that's what I am, but what are you? Or whatever variation of that is. Oh. Well, Joe Biden's son got $23,000 or $56,000 from the Ukrainians to root out corruption. And my kids got millions and millions of dollars in unreported patents with the Chinese government. Jesus. For escort services, too. What's up with that? Escort services, the Trump work, right now. We could go on, but we have a curated show for you today because this is a salon, and, there's a certain order to the salon, even though it's freeform. Well, thank you, Chuck Todd, for finally finding a spine. And John Kennedy, what? John Kennedy Poole, what is that guy? I thought he was a novelist. Confederacy of Dunces. Long gone. Oh, which reminds me, I better tell you right now, Robert Hunter, the lyricist, and I have to say, performer in his own right, singer-songwriter, passed away yesterday, I believe, at the age of 78, of the lyricist for the Grateful Dead. Yes. Wonderful singer-songwriter. Seen him perform in little brew pubs in the East Bay quite often. Great guy. All right, on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, because that's where we begin this. We really do. In a bipartisan effort, the House overwhelmingly voted to rebuke Trump's attacks on refugees. Did you get that? Overwhelmingly voted to rebuke Trump, Republicans and Democrats. On the same day, the impeachment inquiry has been formalized. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Trump ignored the 395 bills Democrats have passed to claim they're only focused on impeachment. Well, look, some of us can multitask, and some of us who were spoiled rich boys growing up and ran a little family business, well, I don't know. What did he command? 20 people at the most? Okay, it's a little bit different multitasking in those efforts, indeed. And the Trump Labor Department is slammed for the wholly inadequate overtime pay rule that is literally taking money from the pockets of workers. Because it was Obama. It's an Obama rule. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where an ex-U.S. intelligence officer gets 10 years in a federal prison for espionage on behalf of China. Told you so. And Chinese hackers who used an unknown iPhone security flaw to target ethnic minority Uighurs also went after Tibetans in exile. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. We seem to have eaten up quite a bit of time. Oh, well. It's West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We have a French theme. Are we ever on time in France? Trust me. On time means to have a graceful and dramatic entrance. Please. Okay, well, if you go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the rightish of the page is the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. She does a lot of work here at the station, as we all do, but thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the page from the chat room link is our Patreon link, and please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Looks like the battery in my MacBook broadcaster seems to have died overnight. It's all cascading as a cavalcade upon me now. Oh my gosh. So I guess hopefully you can change out a battery on a Mac. I don't know. I've never done it before. So I will find out. But regardless, thank you for your recurring patronage of Netroots Radio over these past 8 years. We would be unable to do it without you, just as we are really unable to do it without you right now. So thank you for your generosity, and I know it could be tough out there, but a little bit helps. And thank you once again. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and he does quite a bit of work here at the station as well, as we all do, but we also thank Tom from the depths of our hearts. I take care of at Justice Putnam, and I also post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, a very integral part. Check out those show notes and links. It's right there in the diary. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeart, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts can be found mixed in with all the rest of us. Okay, This first offering that we have here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, where am I? Is by Josh Israel out of Share Blue Media. The House of Representatives passed House Resolution 444 yesterday afternoon, Tuesday, rebuking the Trump administration and reaffirming that the safety, health, and well-being of refugees and displaced persons should be a priority. No more icebox baby gulags. I know we're not going to get there right away because it is a growth industry and you just can't stop business in its tracks. Can you? The resolution offered by Democratic Representatives Ted Lieu and Zoe Lofgren of California, Joe Neguse, Democrat of Colorado, of course these are all Democrats, except for Republican Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida, passed by a voice vote with no discernible opposition. Oh, it was only a voice vote. Too bad. It's now a resolution in law. 3 Republicans and 72 Democrats signed on as sponsors or co-sponsors. In a statement in June, Diaz-Balart said he was pleased to back a resolution that reaffirms the United States commitment. Now, this is a quote from a Republican representative. Reaffirms the United States commitment to help in protecting those who flee their homes in search of safety. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, is also brought to us by Josh Israel of Share Blue Media. Donald Trump claimed yesterday, Tuesday, that Democratic efforts to launch an impeachment inquiry into him had rendered the Democratic Party useless. The Democrats are so focused on hurting the Republican Party and the president, that's me, that they are unable to get anything done because of it, including legislation on gun safety, lowering prescription drug prices, infrastructure, etc. Trump tweeted Tuesday afternoon, yesterday. So bad for our country. Josh Israel reminds us, in fact, the Democrats in the House have passed hundreds of pieces of legislation since taking back control in January. And every single one of those have been blocked in the graveyard of Mitch McConnell's Senate, where legislation goes to die because he is the self-described Grim Reaper. Moscow Mitch is. But they sure have gotten a lot of really weird judges packed up and down the whole judicial system of the United States, just as the Federalist Society planned it several decades ago. Jessica Corbett of Common Dreams brings us this final offering here at the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Labor rights advocates and progressive economists slammed the Trump administration after the Department of Labor announced yesterday, Tuesday, a final rule on overtime pay that replaces a bolder Obama-era proposal blocked by a federal court in Texas. And just as a rejoinder to that, by one of those crazy Federalist Society wacko judges in Texas, by the way, who wants to dismantle everything of Obama. While the administration may be trumpeting this rule as a good thing for workers, that is a ruse, said Heidi Schierholz, Director of Policy at the Economic Policy Institute. In reality, the rule leaves behind millions of workers who would have received overtime protections under the much stronger rule published in 2016 that Trump administration has now abandoned. The Labor Department outlined in a statement 4 key results of its final rule, which is set to take effect on New Year's Day of 2020. Happy New Year. Raising the salary level for the currently enforced level of $455 to $684 per week, which is the equivalent to about $35,568 per year for a full-year worker. Yes. Raising the total annual compensation level for highly compensated employees from the currently enforced level of $100,000 to $107,432 per year, allowing employers to use non-discretionary bonuses and incentive payments, including commissions, that are paid at least annually to satisfy up to 10% of the standard salary level, in recognition of evolving pay practices, and revising the special salary levels for workers in U.S. territories and in the motion picture industry. Oh, if you're offshore, you don't get to get paid as much then. The current standard salary threshold of $23,660 hasn't been updated since 2004. The Labor Department projected Tuesday that about 1.2 million more workers will be entitled to minimum wage and overtime pay as a result of the increase to the standard salary level. And another over 100 and almost 102,000 workers will be entitled to overtime pay as a result of the increase and the compensation levels. The federal government sets the minimum salary level, but several states, including California and New York, have salary thresholds for determining overtime eligibility that are higher than the federal standard. You make $32,000, you don't get overtime. Too bad, you're management. Okay, that brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, you say, wait a minute. So the first shot of Hustlers is of Constance Wu's character Destiny. In the strip club where she works, in the locker room before hitting the floor, she gazes at her reflection. And okay, so immediately it's a movie about her being looked at, about how she has to trade on her looks. Also, it's a movie about self-reflection. Also, a character reflected often suggests duplicity or hidden life or being torn, and all that works here. And you say, wait a minute, isn't this just a movie about strippers? Then Destiny and her co-worker parade through the club. Without cutting, the camera voyeuristically floats behind her. The DJ plays Janet Jackson's Control. Destiny crosses on and off the stage, and now the camera moves front, letting us into her private space as she looks apprehensively at the night's prospects. And it's been one long take so far, like Keitel in Mean Streets. Then there's the cut, then another, and another, as we shift into a montage of a poor night. And you say, wait a minute, this is pretty fancy for a movie about strippers. Next, Ramona. It's Jennifer Lopez. She co-produced this movie along with Adam McKay from The Big Short, along with director and screenwriter Lorene Scafaria, who has Lopez enter to a remix of Fiona Apple's Criminal like a star, like a fighter into the ring, like De Niro in Raging Bull. After an athletic pole routine where a fantasy level of money is showered on her, the next scene has Lopez on the roof, smoking in a fur, looking like an animal after a kill. Destiny comes to ask for help, and Ramona wraps her in the fur, so now she's motherly like a marsupial bringing Destiny into her pouch, and all that works, and you say, wait a minute, and it's 2007 in New York City, and all this money is coming from brokers and hedge fund managers who are hustling bad stocks and building a bubble which bursts in 2008, leaving our heroines desperate, hustling for themselves and their families, and you say, wait, and it's not just a movie about strippers, it's a movie about America, and it's much better than anybody thought it was going to be. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Nature documentaries are known for their sweeping natural vistas, their amazing footage. Seriously, how did they get that shot? And often, the soothing baritone of Sir David Attenborough.
At the southern tip of the Australian continent...
What those documentaries don't do, though, is show the realities of environmental destruction.
Historically, particularly, BBC documentaries have shied away from that.
Nikki Rust is an environmental social scientist at Newcastle University in the UK. Rust studied work by the BBC and the World Wildlife Fund, which had teamed up with Netflix to make what they said would be a whole new kind of production.
They wanted it to reach, I think, 1 billion people, and then it was going to, revolutionize nature documentaries.
Except for the fact, maybe, that Attenborough would be the narrator. The Netflix series Our Planet aimed to be different because it promised to reveal the threats facing wildlife in the natural world. So did it deliver? Rust and her colleagues analyzed scripts of Our Planet along with 3 recent BBC series, Planet Earth 2,
It's no bigger than a ping pong ball.
Dynasties,
Even for 20 hyenas.
and Blue Planet 2,
Spider crabs.
and logged everything they saw on the screen. Turns out,
Our Planet only talks about threats and successes a little bit more than Blue Planet 2.
15% of the script did focus on the woes of the natural world, but very little devastation was actually shown on screen, despite being filmed. The analysis is in the journal People and Nature.
The lead author of the study, Julia Jones, was in Madagascar at the time where Netflix were there filming, and she knows that they were there filming the destruction of habitat and burning and lots of environmental devastation. So they've got the footage, it's just unfortunately it wasn't chosen to be included.
It's not clear if that's really a bad thing, though. We still don't really know whether showing environmental tragedies on screen motivates people to support conservation. But what climate change communication has taught us, Russ says, is that the ideal way to motivate audiences is with optimism tinged with trepidation. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with floodwater, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Is President Trump regularly violating the anti-corruption provision of the Constitution, called the Emoluments Clause? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Emolument is a fancy word meaning profit, gain, or compensation. And Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, in sweeping language, prohibits any person who holds a federal office, that includes the president, from profiting from his office, that is, from receiving an emolument. Trump, profiting from the patronage of persons seeking favors from administration who are at the same time spending huge sums at his hotels, has spawned numerous lawsuits alleging his violation of the Emoluments Clause. The Emoluments Clause case brought in New York federal court initially was thrown out, but recently was reinstated by the Court of Appeals, and that case now proceeds. However, another case with a similar legal claim has been thrown out by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And in the District of Columbia, a very similar case brought by congressional Democrats also is headed to that circuit court. This first ever constitutional controversy may well be headed for the Supreme Court, which may or may not actually make a decision. After all, the High Court just decided in the case of blatant partisan gerrymandering that it would not, and no federal court could, fashion any remedy for that corrupt, democracy-destroying practice. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. Can a photograph bring about social reform? Louis Hine believed it could, and on this day in labor history, the year was 1874. Renowned photographer Louis Hine was born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Hine studied sociology at the University of Chicago, Columbia University, and New York University. He secured a job teaching at the Ethical Culture School in New York City. Hine used photography in his teachings. He took his students to Ellis Island to photograph some of the thousands of immigrants who arrived each day. In 5 years, they had taken more than 200 photographs. Louis Hine continued to use his camera to capture the lives of the poor and working class. Hine traveled the country taking pictures of children who worked in factories. Since factory owners often refused Hine entry into their factories, he sometimes hid his camera and posed as a fire inspector. His photographs helped prod Congress to take up the problem of child labor in the United States. Hine worked for the Red Cross during World War I, and on his passport, he listed himself as following the occupation of a photographer and investigator. His camera documented the war's devastating impact on French and Belgian citizens. After the war, Hine joined the campaign to establish better safety laws for American workers. In 1930 through 1931, he took photographs documenting the construction of the Empire State Building. He was later employed by the Tennessee Valley Authority to photograph the dam's construction. In addition, he took photos of the Civilian Conservation Corps. These images remain a lasting documentation of the laborers employed by New Deal programs. Louis Hine had difficulty earning enough money from his photography to support himself. His poverty mirrored that of the workers he had photographed. And sadly, in November of 1949, Louis Hine died in poverty. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
This week, the president has admitted to asking the president of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the president's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
On Tuesday afternoon, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi made an historic move to initiate impeachment proceedings against the President of the United States. Pelosi's change of heart comes as dozens of House Democrats have come out in support of an official impeachment inquiry. The unofficial count as of press time Wednesday morning stands at 200. Donald Trump responded on Twitter within moments of Pelosi's announcement, calling it, quote, witch hunt garbage. There was another earth-shaking story that happened Tuesday that isn't getting as much attention, but it is as big or even bigger than Pelosi officially getting on board for impeaching Trump. In the Senate, Mitch McConnell has used pocket vetoes on virtually every bill the Democratic-led House has passed. But shockingly, the Senate on Tuesday unanimously passed a resolution calling for the whistleblower complaint to be released to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. Now, it's just a non-binding resolution, but it is important to note that this required all 100 senators to agree, and not one objected. No Senate Republican was willing to block it. Mitch McConnell could have chosen to block it, but he didn't. As to what the impeachable offense is, well, here's a good explainer from the New York Times. Quote, his refusal so far to provide Congress with an intelligence official's whistleblower complaint as required by law, coupled with the possibility that Mr. Trump dangled American military aid as a bargaining chip to win investigation of a political rival by a foreign government, strikes them as a stark case of presidential wrongdoing. They consider it egregious enough that they expect many Americans who had been cool to the idea of moving to oust the president to recognize the imperative for the House to act. Donald Trump on Tuesday afternoon tweeted, quote, I am currently at the United Nations representing our country, but have authorized the release tomorrow of the complete, fully declassified and unredacted transcript of my phone conversation with President Zelensky of Ukraine. You will see it was a very friendly and totally appropriate call. No pressure and, unlike Joe Biden and his son, no quid pro quo. This is nothing more than a continuation of the greatest and most destructive witch hunt of all time. The problem is that an actual transcript of the call most likely doesn't even exist. Richard Haass, president of the Council on Foreign Relations, tweeted, quote, what you tend to have is a memo prepared by an NSC staffer listening in that captures what he or she believes are the main points. So in other words, what we'd likely see is basically a White House readout of the call. Not good enough. The demands for the release of the official whistleblower complaint and the Inspector General's report got even louder. So then Trump tweeted later Tuesday night that in addition to the so-called transcript, he'd also release the whistleblower report. A news alert pinged my phone from Politico with this headline, quote, White House preparing to release whistleblower complaint to Congress. My question is, why does the White House have any part to play in its release? The correct chain of custody goes from the whistleblower to the Inspector General to the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, to Congress. Not only should the White House be excluded from this chain, but the president is the subject of the complaint. I'm still waiting for an answer as to why the White House is anywhere near the original complaint or the Inspector General's report. By the way, Donald Trump addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday. It was a forceful speech, well, in words anyway, declaring the importance of nationalism while repeating white nationalist and anti-Semitic tropes in a manner that suggested sleepwalking. So that happened. Now, this should be interesting. As part of the United Nations General Assembly, Wednesday afternoon at 2:15 Eastern Time, just one day after Trump's interactions with the president of Ukraine touched off a formal impeachment inquiry, Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky will meet in person. Oh, to be a fly on that wall. Also happening Wednesday, House Democrats and House Republicans hold their weekly caucus meetings with press conferences afterwards. Should be interesting. Looking ahead, Thursday will be another momentous day as Joseph McGuire, the acting director of national intelligence, will be on Capitol Hill testifying in an open setting beginning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And then Friday, for some strange reason, the House is scheduled to leave for a 2-week recess. Yeah, the next day in session would be October 15th. According to Politico, their sources tell them the recess is not going to be canceled. Speaking on behalf of myself and many of my listeners, I'll say, WTF, Nancy Pelosi, what the hell are you doing? Cancel the recess. We're now in an official impeachment inquiry. Do your job. And yes, despite all the other news, it is still Climate Week. A new report by the UN-backed Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, just published Wednesday morning, is called, quote, Special Report on the Ocean and Cryosphere in a Changing Climate. It warns of severe damage to the world's oceans and icy regions, saying the Earth's oceans are under such severe strain from climate change that everything from seafood harvests to the well-being of hundreds of millions of people along the coasts will soon be in jeopardy. According to the report, the world's oceans have absorbed more than 90% of the warming that has occurred on Earth over the last 50 years, with the rate of ocean warming more than doubling since 1993. And that's just a bit of What's News for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. In addition to the daily What's News report, I host the Nicole Sandler Show. Tuesday through Friday, we do it live at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific at NicoleSandler.com. We're on the Progressive Voices Network, Tuesday through Friday, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, and available as a podcast anytime at NicoleSandler.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 57 degrees Fahrenheit, slated for a high of, maybe 78 to 81. How do you like them apples? A proper fall day here in Southern Oregon, indeed. Partly cloudy skies prevail, though it's a little foggy right now. We're not at elevation. Well, we are, but not that high. We will have a clear sky tonight with overnight lows around the mid-50s, mid to upper 50s. Winds will be out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour starting in a couple of hours from now. And tonight they will shift out of the west, northwest, and continue at their clip of 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then they will be light and variable tomorrow, where we are expected to have a high of about 82. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.15 inches. Visibility is at 7 miles, and relative humidity is at 85%. Oh, of course, I forgot to mention that pollen locally is rated at none, and that's always good. Air quality index is at 19 parts per million, and that's good, and that's actually better than I've seen in a long time. And that daytime UV index locally is rated at moderate at 5, which is also something lower than what we've seen in months previous. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 70 degrees and mostly cloudy. Oh, Paris. There's Paris. The lovely ville of Paris is currently 70 degrees and cloudy. Rome is 77 and partly cloudy, and they continue to have a thunderstorm advisory. Kiev is 62 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 76 and fair. Really? Is it? Hong Kong is 78 and fair. Tokyo is 75 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 62 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 68 and partly cloudy with a wind advisory on the bay and offshore for small craft. And you know who you are. And New York, New York is 70 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny on the Big Apple. And that is weather from around the world. Brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. A former U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency officer who admitted he betrayed his country for financial gain was sentenced yesterday, Tuesday, to 10 years in a federal prison for attempted espionage on behalf of China. Ron Rockwell Hansen, age 60, of Syracuse, Utah, pleaded guilty in March to trying to pass classified U.S. national defense information to China and admitted to receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars as an agent for the Beijing government. FBI agents arrested Hansen in June of 2018 as he was on his way to the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport to board a flight to China. As part of his guilty plea, Hansen acknowledged soliciting U.S. national security information that he knew China would find valuable from a fellow Defense Intelligence Agency case officer and agreeing to sell that information to the Chinese. The documents he received from the Defense Intelligence Agency case officer related to U.S. military readiness. Hansen also admitted to having advised the DIA case officer how to record and transmit the documents without detection and how to hide and launder any funds received as payment for those secrets. Unbeknownst to Hansen, the case officer reported his conduct to the DIA and acted as an FBI informant in the case.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Chinese hackers who used a previously unknown iPhone security flaw to target ethnic minority Uighurs also went after Tibetans in exile. It was the first detected use of malicious software against exiled Tibetans that required only a single click on a mobile device to work. Citing the technical similarities in the attacks and ones uncovered by U.S. tech firms, forces likely working with the Chinese government may be upgrading their surveillance efforts against key minorities more broadly. Of course, the Tibetans are protesting Chinese rule of the mountainous region inside of China. Asked in Beijing about the report, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesman said China resolutely opposed and cracked down on any form of internet attacks, and that any accusations needed to be backed up by cast iron proof. Well, how about titanium? I think they got it. That brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. In fact, we're going to meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.